Good afternoon, everyone. Today is November 17th, 2022, and this is another episode of Conversations from Stritch. I'm David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined, as usual, by our provost, Dr. Christopher Sent. It's amazing to me that Thanksgiving is just around the corner next week. I can't believe it. And tonight, Dr. Sent and I will be among a group of Lewis staff who will help serve a special Thanksgiving dinner tonight in the Brown Dining Hall. So all of you students out there, make sure you come by, and we'll put the turkey on the plate with some stuffing. Faculty, staff, administrators, and alumni are also invited to host Lewis University international students for a holiday meal or another event as part of International Ambassador Friendship Family Program. The Office of International Students and Global Scholar Services accepting applications for host families until today. So if you're an employee here and you're open to having some international students be at your Thanksgiving table, we have over 50 international students who have expressed an interest in the program. So we're looking for additional people from the community. Lewis community members interested in hosting should complete the online form at Host Family Application Form, International Ambassador Friendship Family Program, which is available on the Lewis website. We will be away for 2 weeks due to Thanksgiving. And so I wanted to mention a few Lewis community events that are going to happen over the next couple weeks. So for our faculty and staff, our employees, on this afternoon from 4 to 6 in the university dining room, we will have a Chicago-style pizza party, which I'm really looking forward to. So please stop by before you leave campus today. On November 28th, we have the Christmas tree lighting, which will happen at 4:15. So right after Thanksgiving, we will light the trees. And as everybody's aware, once we light that one tree, then all the lights around campus that have been put up by our great grounds crew will also light up for the month of December, the end of November, month of December. November 29th, 3:30 to 5, Coffee with Leadership will occur in the flight deck. And then on December 1st, from 2 to 6, we have the Christmas open house for all of our employees in Stritch Hall. It was a great success last year, and we're really looking forward to hosting it again this year. Actually, when Chris and I just got back from a trip, and I walked in this morning, and Stritch Hall was all decorated in Christmas. Yeah. So it's ready for the Christmas open house.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here in this decorated place, the studio as well. So we have the Christmas spirit and the Thanksgiving spirit for sure. And our jobs are really hard. So we are going to have pizza.
I know.
Followed by Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes, tonight.
We're done with it.
It's just food and more food today.
Yeah, so there's a lot of wonderful festivities going on. So I have some news to report about our community members. Congratulations to the Lewis University Cyber Defense Club, which had a team finish in the top 5 out of 150 teams in the November 6th U.S. Department of Energy's Cyber Force competition. The team used their cybersecurity and teamwork skills to defend a simulated solar energy array from determined hackers. The undergraduate students on the team include Ryan Syed, Kyle Bai, Aiden Pfeiffer, Nick Formella, Ethan Justice, and Cindy Lee. And that team is mentored by Dr. Jason Perry, Associate Professor and Director of Cybersecurity and IT Programs here. So congratulations to that. Great. It happens every year. We get used to it, but incredible accomplishment by that cybersecurity team. Congratulations to our Chief of Police, Mike Zagadlo, who recently appeared on the podcast, The Great Conversation, the new value proposition of policing. Chief Zagadlo spoke about how he has leveraged the community's value proposition to build relationships and change the perception of law enforcement. It's a great listen. I recommend you to listen to that. It's called The Great Conversation Podcast, and you can get it on any of the platforms. It's a think tank with leaders in security and law enforcement, and based out of Washington and led by Ron Warman. Another great student group, with continued success for the 4th consecutive year, Lewis University's Jet Fuel Review won a College Media Association Pinnacle Award for being the best publication in the nation. The student-run literary magazine earned the Individual Design CMA Pinnacle Award for Best Literary Magazine. Jet Fuel Review won the top award at the 4-year Literary Magazine of the Year in 2021, 2020, and 2019. So the journal features work by our own students as well, and faculty as well as international artists in fiction, nonfiction, poetry, interviews, book reviews, art, and ebook publication. And then the last thing I want to talk about is just to introduce our community to a new member of our community. The Lowell Stahl Center for Entrepreneurship and Real Estate has named Jay Safsani, who is a marketing alum from 2007, as the inaugural Entrepreneur in Residence in the College of Business. The Entrepreneur in Residence program primarily supports student initiatives such as Enactus, the Business Plan Competition, and the Lecture Series. And the Entrepreneur in Residence also supports diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and can serve as an instructor or visitor to business classes, entrepreneurship classes. The entrepreneurs make themselves available to meet students throughout the semester and year and partner with career services offering insights and networking connections in support of student needs, as well as faculty support from advising and classroom guest speakers. So that's wonderful that we have this position now, and we are really happy to introduce our Jay, who is our inaugural Entrepreneur in Residence. He is the founder of Meal Sharing, which revolutionized the way people dine around the world. It's a leading, he led a pioneering company in the sharing economy food category. It connects passionate home cooks with diners and connects them and makes the food delivery happen. And that process, that meal sharing, gathered accolades from the BBC, Food and Wine, NPR, and Jimmy Kimmel Live. He has spoken at the British Parliament on the sharing economy, been featured in the Smithsonian Magazine, and been invited to the United Nations alongside other global innovators to help solve current social issues. So I'm really excited about him being here and to be available to students and faculty and to be a great influence in our community.
It's great stuff, and a whole list of amazing things, and I appreciate both on both sides of the, what Chief Zagadlo's doing and also what our students are doing in jet fuel and the cybersecurity and obviously our new Entrepreneur in Residence. But it's nice to see that balance between all the things that are going on campus. So a few more announcements on my side. So we have, as Chris said earlier, there's so much stuff going on in this kind of month of November. It's just full, and we have lots of opportunities for people to really engage with the community, work in association with each other, and of course, make the world a better place, as we always talk about. So November 17th and 18th from noon to 5, that is this week. We have a Thanksgiving food drive, so donate food and toiletries to go to the Spanish Community Center in Joliet. November 18th from 1 to 3, Upcycle Planters. Sustainability Club is making flower pots from plastic containers. November 18th, also in the Red Room, Trivia Night from 2 to 4. And then November 18th from 4 to 5, we have, I don't know if I'm off on this, Bridges, Lewis University Ministry educates and advocates for justice and equality for the LGBTQ community, and reconciliation with the larger church and student communities. So please come share your experiences and in a supporting and accepting environment. So lots going on November 18th as well. I feel like everybody's going to have 20 things to do on the 18th. From 5 to 7 in the faculty staff dining room, the Asian American Association potluck is going to happen. Also tomorrow night from 7 to 8:30 in Convocation Hall, the Kappa Delta Pi induction ceremony. So amazing amount of events in the next 2 days.
This always happens at Lewis. Tomorrow is not unique. I just think we had a little time today to share some of the amazing student events that are student activities and opportunities that are going on. To add to this, and I think we have a slide about this as well. November 18th,
Christmas Carol in the Philip Lynch Theater at 7:30. I know we're doing, I'm looking forward to attending that, and we're having some of our alumni come in for a special reception before that. So this is a theater production which will be a radio play adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The holiday classic comes to life as a live 1940s radio broadcast, complete with vintage commercials and the magic of live sound effects and musical underscoring. Handful of actors bring dozens of characters to the stage as the familiar story unfolds. Three ghosts take Ebenezer Scrooge on a thrilling journey to teach him the meaning of Christmas. A Christmas Carol will run this weekend and then the weekend of December 1st through 4th. So this weekend on November 19th, 9 a.m., Multicultural Leadership Academy will occur for the graduate ceremony for the Multicultural Leadership Academy on November 21st at 6 p.m. In St. Charles Borromeo 171, the Sales Excellence event, and on November 21st, 6:30 to 8:30 in Convocation Hall, the Gospel Choir will do their Thanksgiving musical. Always a really wonderful event if you can attend. November 21st, 7:30 to 9:30 in the Studio Theater, the Fall Choir Cabaret. And then on the 22nd in the Darcy Great Room, Greg Harms will host a philosophy symposium. In addition to all this academic stuff, there's also, we are in the end of the fall athletic world and the beginnings of the winter athletic season.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what's going
There's
on?
some
We got
really
an exciting thing
stuff
going on tonight.
in athletics.
Yeah.
So actually 2:30, just a couple hours from now, our women's volleyball team will be competing in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Hillsdale at that first weekend of the NCAA tournament in our region is at Quincy. So they're down there competing in that first round. So we'll be rooting for them this afternoon. Hopefully they will advance. Men's and women's swimming takes place, will be competing on Thursday and Friday at IUPUI House of Champions Invitational in Indianapolis. Our men's and women's cross-country teams will also be competing in the NCAA regionals this weekend on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in Kenosha, Wisconsin. If they compete, if they are successful there, then they will go on to the national championship which I believe is in the Northwest and Seattle area coming up. So let's please root for them. Our one home contest is men's basketball, just beginning its season. I think this is maybe the fourth game, which takes place Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock against Cedarville. That is also Military Appreciation Day. And then finally, our women's basketball team competes at Ashland Saturday afternoon at 5:30. So yeah, a lot of excitement in athletics.
Well, and such an exciting, two really significant opportunities on the national stage. So the women's volleyball team, I guess what I would say is maybe outperformed their season by winning the GLVC championship last week, because they'd had a kind of up and down season. They had some injuries, but I feel like they're great momentum for this afternoon. Absolutely. Because they ended up winning the tournament and had a really great GLVC tournament, and now let's hope they win the regional tournament. And then for our runners, it's going to be cold up there on Saturday, but we had such a great end of the season for the cross-country team as well, so hopefully they'll both make it to the West Coast for the national race. It's just exciting.
So as we turn to focus on our main event for the day, I just want to remind everyone that to use the askus@lewis.edu email if you'd like to ask us or our guest a question during the day, during the hour. Please use that, and we'll move it along and incorporate it into our show. If you are watching a recorded version of this on YouTube, you may also use askus@lewis.edu, and whichever person is appropriate to answer the question, we'll get back to you with an answer. So our focus this week is on our international Lasallian community and the network of 64 universities across the world that comprise the International Lasallian Higher Education Network. And to help us with this conversation, we would like to introduce our guest, Professor Jerry Kavouras. Dr. Kavouras is a professor of biology who has been a member of the Department of Biology at Lewis since 2005. Currently, he is the chair of the department and directs the environmental science program. Dr. Kavouras teaches courses for biology and environmental science majors and mentors undergraduate research projects on a wide array of topics, including disease ecology, biofilms, aquatic and soil microbial communities, coliform bacteria on fabrics, ecological roles of invasive mussels, and environmental quality of soils. Outside of Lewis, he is an active member of the American Society for Microbiology. I am very pleased to introduce and welcome Dr. Kavouras. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation to
It's
speak
wonderful
today.
to be with you. So we're going to talk, the three of us, about this international Lasallian community, and there are several dimensions to it. And Dr. Kavouras is, and we're all involved in different pieces of it, pieces of them in different ways. So we'll just, I'm going to start by just explaining a little context. The International Association of Lasallian Universities was created in 1998 and serves more than 64 institutions worldwide, supporting collaboration and a clearer articulation of the identity of the Lasallian University. This map we're looking at has little pins for all Lasallian schools, including K through 12 schools, but you get a sense of how diverse and wide the Lasallian community is. And they really support staff and students to benefit, to receive benefits from this large international network. And as President Livingston mentioned, he and I just returned from a meeting of Lasallian universities that come together every 3 years or so to talk together about the future, and it is called Encuentro. And so I'm going to start by asking actually you a question. Okay. Could you talk a little bit about what Encuentro is and what we do there?
Yeah.
And maybe, and also I didn't prepare this, but you're also the vice president, is that the right word?
It is.
Of the entire internet of IALU itself. So
Yes.
You might maybe share a little bit about, from your
Sure.
perspective, about the benefits of this international community.
Well, and I want to just say thanks again to Dr. Jerry Kavouras for joining us. But a few things. As you said, 64 universities around the globe. They're broken up into 5 regions. So, we kind of span from the Philippines, South America, Mexico, the United States, Europe, Africa. And we do get together every 3 years for an opportunity. I would say most schools bring 2 to 3 people. So a president, a provost, maybe a mission officer or a CFO or somebody else. And we talk to each other about Lasallian pedagogy and the Lasallian mission, but also about what ways we can partner together to enhance the educational opportunities for our students, as well as the professional development of our faculty and staff. I was elected at the last Encuentro in Mexico City as the vice president for IALU, which really creates an opportunity for me to represent our region on that executive committee, but also an opportunity for me on a regular basis to go visit the other universities. So one of the really best parts of that is we try in a 3-year period to then get around to at least one of the representative universities from each one of those regions. And then all the presidents from those universities come to there, and we get to hear about what is going on in Africa or what is going on in the Philippines. I've learned so much. And I guess one of the things that I'll say, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit, because I'll be interested in hearing from Jerry about this. One of the things that I discovered that I didn't know when I started doing this was that most of the rest of the Lasallian schools around the world do not do as much of a gen ed curriculum as we do. So there's a much more of a focus if you're a business student, primarily just business courses. I think they're very intrigued and jealous of the U.S. system in terms of its ability to have this broader education. But it also creates some challenges. We try to work together in terms of sometimes, we'll talk about maybe about Luce, having their students study in Rome, because we offer classes in theology and in history and in biology, and some of them just would want 4 classes in business. But it's a great group of people, really great group of people. I've been very I've learned so much from the process.
Yeah, I also find it very inspiring to be around all those people that have a common mission and a real interest in higher education across the world, but also challenges. And it's interesting to have those conversations about comparisons.
And just one thing, Chris, that that I would say maybe we can maybe you'd like to respond a little bit to this, but one of the things that both of us heard at this meeting was how important Africa is going to be in the next decade in terms of growth of the Lasallian world, because we're not expecting to see probably an additional 2 or 3 universities in the United States over the next decade, Lasallian universities that get started, but it's very possible that we could see 2 or 3 universities in Africa. So I don't know if you had reactions to hearing from the Vicar General and the Superior General talk about kind of their sense of where Lasallian education's going.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the major takeaways for me from that last week is we did hear a speech from the Vicar General of the Lasallian world, who did, I really remember 2 things from that speech. One is a very clear, detailed explanation of why Africa is a focus for us going forward. There are French-speaking, English-speaking universities and Lasallian universities or colleges in Africa, and there's real room for growth as the economy in that continent is very much predicted to grow and expand a lot over the next 30 to 50 years. And so there will be many opportunities for our community members to participate in that, to go, to help with the founding of schools, to have more exchange opportunities for professors from African colleges from that continent. And really the other thing was maybe not new to our community, but a really clear articulation of our mission to go to the peripheries is the expression that they use. Sometimes we say to touch marginalized communities, but it was a very passionate and it was interesting to hear that call in an international context, where poverty is understood differently than we sometimes talk about it here in the U.S. So yeah, it all made sense, but it was also inspiring to see that there's a real vision and direction.
And with the new leadership that were just elected, a real, as you say, that call to the periphery. And here's 100 leaders of higher ed, and they were, it was very clear that this is what they wanted. They wanted us to help. We're going to do a lot of things, but help Africa to grow, because there's a real need for higher education. Somebody, I think, said that 2% of Africans right now have a 4-year degree.
Right.
And that it'll go up to probably 20 or 30% over the next 30 years. So and you're talking about a continent that has a billion people in it. So.
And some of that will be done by studying abroad, which we love when people come to our university or other American universities. But much of it, we hope, will be done in those countries, and in people having access to a university education inside of their own communities and countries and so on. So that's a big part of the future and a big challenge. So a little while ago, we had a slide with a list of different things that IALU is really responsible for. One of those is a program called One LaSalle. That is an exchange program for students to move freely for study abroad opportunities between Lasallian universities across the world. Lewis has been really actively involved in hosting exchange students from other Lasallian universities even before this initiative began about, 7 or 8 years ago. And the numbers have increased since Lewis became part of that, and the One LaSalle initiative. And although student mobility programs in general came to a halt during the pandemic, the One LaSalle initiative and our study abroad programs have started sending students again in the spring of 2022, and very much so this year. Student interest in Lewis through One LaSalle has continued to grow. Chicago is a great destination, and we heard that from many of our partners this last couple weeks. And one of the largest number of Lasallian University students that we've hosted so far. And so just as an example, this semester we are hosting 5 students through this network from 4 different universities across the world, 3 countries, Bolivia, France, and Mexico. 2 different universities in Mexico have students here this term. our students have studied abroad in a variety of ways, but one way connected to the International Lasallian Network is the Rome program, which we just featured on the show a couple weeks ago. So we won't dwell on that, but just to remind you, the Rome program is a program where our students and students from all Lasallian universities are invited to attend this Lewis program that's hosted on the Rome, at the Brothers Center in the Rome campus. And Dr. Kavouras, finally I get to ask you a question, actually taught in that program last semester. So I just thought you might reflect a little bit on, and just tell us what you did, how you went there, and then what you did with the students who were there.
Sure. So the course I taught was Introduction to Environmental Science, which was a general education class. And 12 weeks. I spent 1 week actually in Rome teaching. So the other 11 weeks it was taught virtually while the students were there. So the week that I visited Rome, working with our study abroad office, we organized field trips to connect concepts from the course back to what they were actually seeing and experiencing. So for example, one of the field trips we went on were to the aqueducts. So we're visiting aqueducts built 2,000 years ago, right? And we were very fortunate. The guide was not only a tour guide, but he was actually an archaeologist as well. So as I was going through some of the concepts of water management, he was also able to add a little bit of the history of it, and many of the issues that they were trying to address 2,000 years ago in what I believe is one of the first cities that had 1 million people in it are the same issues we're trying to address today. And their solutions were very similar to the solutions we've come up today. And it was very interesting just to walk up to the aqueducts and see how massive they are, and the engineering that went into it to build these structures to move water 70 miles. And you're thinking 2,000 years ago, and they were doing the same thing.
Slightly different machinery to help with the building.
It's incredible. I mean, it's and such a great thing. So I guess I want to emphasize, underline something that both of you can respond to, which is the hybrid nature of the Luce program, right? Which is what you're saying. So students go over there, they have Rome as their classroom, Europe as their classroom, but they also still have this opportunity to have a class with you while you're back in Romeoville, and then an opportunity to be with you in Rome. But that creates a lot of options. I mean, I think part of this international notion is that asynchronous, synchronous, live in person, and using the world as a classroom, that experiential learning that is now a part of our curriculum, they all meld together in this program. So I don't know if either of you want to comment on that, but I think it's an exciting, that the internationalization and these new modes of delivery really feel like, especially post-COVID, they really fit together well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yes. So when we were over in Rome, we also got to meet with some of the local grassroots efforts for sustainability, environmental causes in Rome. And what was really neat about it is that the students got to hear firsthand from them, right? And then part of it, I was able to also expand using our Lasallian network. A professor that I collaborate with from Uni LaSalle, France, she was able to fly in, and we did a little mini workshop on food. And then the students did an incredible project over the course of 2 days, putting stuff together, looking at Rome and their food production and towards sustainability, and examine that, right? So they got to do a little case study and then present it, right? But again, building off of that Lasallian network, connecting other experts, bringing them in, and basically showcasing the experttle
And the
available.
technology, is what made it possible, really. I mean, it's the network and Jerry's greatness, but also the relationships. But really, he was teaching a semester here while all of this was going on.
Right, so he's able to teach 3 courses to students live here, and then 1 virtual, and then while he's gone, students can do some asynchronous stuff. Well, the 3 that are here, and I mean, all that stuff is great. And Jerry, I think many of our other faculty, but part of the reason you're here is because you've developed two really strong relationships with two different universities, right? So
yes.
one in France, one in
And-
Colombia.
Right, in Bogota.
And that's amazing to me. I mean, and I'd love to hear you talk. And again, we can go different places. I know we have other topics that we want to, but I'd love to hear you talk about how that has enriched your professional life, right? So, yeah, it's great for the students, and we can get back to that. But now you have colleagues on two different continents. And what has that meant for you as a professor, as a professional?
One of the neat things about it is it's given me an opportunity to see things through different lenses, right? And that's really when you start exploring new topics and ideas. So with France, looking at food systems, I mean, that probably is not something that I would have explored as deeply. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to drill down more into different topics, learn more about, the U.S. food system as well, and get that international perspective. And then with Bogota, learning, reading, I understand, the environmental issues, but actually, I've been to both universities. I've visited Bogota as well, and seeing the culture, experiencing it, and then learning about the issues firsthand from the students and from the faculty. It's really, again, enriching.
Yeah, so we'll get more into that as we go. I mean, that's a great question, and we're going to ask that same variations of that, because that's really what this is, so much of what this is about. So I want to just introduce one other kind of specific thing that happens through this international network, which is called COIL. It is a program for faculty to collaborate via online education on courses and other potential collaborative enterprises. So participating faculty in COIL are paired together in the Lasallian network through LaSalle, Mexico City, and led through a training process where they create a syllabus to be offered online to students from both institutions. So essentially it's an online class offered to the two institutions that are represented by the two professors doing the collaboration. But it's much more than that, and I know, and you've done it, so I just wanted to ask what that experience was like, and how did it go, and how did it kind of play out?
So the COIL experience, I was invited by my collaborator from Bogota.
So in this case, you already knew your partner. It
I knew
might
my
be
partner.
the case in other times when you're meeting that partner for the first time through this process.
Yes. So in many cases, the Lasallian network will connect people of similar interests together to design a class, and it could be on a particular topic, or it could be a class that they both normally teach. And so the experience is about 6 to 10 weeks. The first couple weeks is like getting to know each other, right? So for me, that was easy. I already knew Dr. Gonzalez. And so after that, coming up with, and it's very logical, coming up with what are the topics that you want to discuss? Then the next week, what are the learning objectives of the course? Then how are you going to organize teaching the course? What modalities are you going to use? What types of assignments? And so by the end, you have a syllabus, one syllabus that you both can use to teach the class to a mixed group of students. So for example, in this case, fortunately, Rosalina and I are both in the same time zone. So we could teach synchronous online. But you could also teach the course asynchronously, France and the United States as well, yes.
And so how often in this, because I've heard different things from different professors where these two groups of students and these two professors would the syllabus is the same, but we only get together every 2 weeks, for maybe a synchronous situation, or we get together more regular or less regularly. So maybe you talk about specifically how often you and Dr. Gonzalez got the students together virtually. And then if you've talked to other people, what the variety of that range is.
I think part of it is time zone differences that plays a role in determining how often you're going to meet synchronously. With Rosalina and I, we've been fortunate that we were able to do it in kind of a hybrid format. because the students were able to come here this past summer. So we got to do some of it in person, and then other parts of it just asynchronously, getting to meet each other and things like that.
And then what about language?
So again, in this case here, we were very fortunate that the students from Bogota spoke English very well. And so their interactions, so it was really interesting. The first day when they were here during the summer, they separated out, Lewis students here, students from Bogota here. And then I had like an icebreaker activity, right? And within 2 minutes, after pairing them up, they're all like chit-chatting, that perfectly communicating. By, the end of the week of the experience, they're talking about different things, about what they miss about, what school's like and what they normally do. So no, it was great. And the Lewis students went, out of their way to learn more. They wanted to learn more about their culture, as the Bogota students wanted to learn more about ours.
So we've had about, I think, 6 professors who have taken advantage of COIL or have embraced COIL over the last couple years. I just kind of want to summarize some of this, what we're hearing, and I have one more question for Jerry about this. So it's a way to meet new people across the Lasallian network. You might talk more about this, but in some cases you might be learning something new in some, in a field that you already are expert in. In some cases, you might find a collaborator who is an expert in the same thing that you're an expert in that you don't have here in this campus. So that's really exciting. I did hear, I've heard from our own faculty as well as during last week, listening to people from other universities. There's all kinds of different formats for COIL. So one person might be teaching a class and have a professor expert come for one class and give a lecture in that class. So doesn't have to be necessarily equal commitment from both people. So there's all kinds of opportunity that I think we're just scratching the surface of. And then from the student point of view, you go to Lewis and you get to meet a professor from Bogota and learn, and as you just said, the students and we'll get to the actual exchange part, but assuming you don't have an in-person experience, you still get to have that social dynamic with students from another country, where you have something in common. You have the Lasallian mission in common and the subject matter in common, but you're still get to really focus on that.
And when designing the COIL course, one of the first things, like for the first week or two, we had assignments where the students would present and share, what's life like here in the United States, what's life like in your country, and then, do those types of interactions, even though they're online, to learn more about each other, because even though they're separated by thousands of miles, we want to create that classroom atmosphere when they meet.
Yeah, I was just in a different kind of thing. We've had students from Bethlehem University who have come over and studied here, quite a number, who have then gone back and taught there. And I was just, as we were at this meeting, I was having a conversation with the president, called the chancellor, but the president of their university. And I remember the first time I met him, this goes back to students, understanding students. He said, our students sometimes will get stopped at multiple checkpoints just to get to school, right? Most of their students are commuters, just like most of our students are commuters. They commute from 20 or 30 miles away. But we don't have
Plainfield
3 checkpoints between Plainfield and
Mm-hmm.
Romeoville that they have to go through the government telling them whether they can go. And sometimes they miss class or they're late to class because of a checkpoint issue. So I think just those kind of things, as you say, like what's going on in Bogota, what's it like to be a student, can be so valuable. And I guess I just want to emphasize how that expands the Lewis experience to come to school here with professors like you, Jerry, and others. The opportunity to have access to 300,000 students globally, which are the number of students that are in the Lasallian universities. And I don't know how many thousands of faculty, but thousands of faculty who have expertise that can really enhance what a Lewis education can do, I think is just such a gift that the network offers.
Having visited both the UniLaSalle campus in Beauvais and the Bogota campus, yes, it is a little bit different. The The one in France is a bit more like us, where you have a large student population that lives on campus. Whereas the Bogota one, there are very few students that actually live on campus. They're commuters. They might be coming in for the commute might be an hour through mass transit, but it's built like a little city, and they're there all day. You know, yes, and the programs of study are a bit more, I would use the term vocational. They're very focused in certain areas.
So we have.
Yeah, go ahead. No question. I was just gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more. Maybe we've already started talking about this, but one final dimension of IALU is faculty and student mobility that really goes beyond exchange or study abroad. So this might take the form of a short-term travel to Bogota, for example, a collaborative research project that could be virtual between two faculty or in person in doing field work or doing particular lab work across international universities. And so we just wanted to could you just maybe start back at the beginning and talk about this research relationship with the professor from Bogota, whose name I'm blanking on.
Oh, Dr. Lasallian Gonzalez.
Lasallian Gonzalez. Yeah.
Yes. So we were introduced through the International Lasallian Advisory Research Group, ILARC. And initially she wanted to learn some techniques because she was studying soil contamination. And so I was asked if I could show her some techniques. So in the summer of 2019, she came up and I showed her some techniques that could record the activity of microbes in soil and how she could use that potentially.
And so by
to
came up, she stayed here on campus
for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. She was here and got to be in the lab, learn. She was taking a lot of pictures and sharing with her students back in Bogota. And so what was neat there is, so she learns the techniques. She meets the students here, go out, we collect data, we do the technique, perform the techniques. She took the data after we did some analysis. She goes back to Bogota and her students do more data analysis. And that led to presentations. Her students presented in Rome. Our students got to travel to Bogota to present, on the data and meet this, and that was a great experience for them. And then from there, Rosalina and I, the COIL course, we designed that, and this pandemic happened, which kind of put a damper on things. But this past summer, we were able to continue the work with northbound mobility. So some of our students had visited there. Her students were able to come up for students from Bogota. So they came up and they got to spend a week here learning those techniques.
Looking at some pictures now.
Yes,
Oh,
and
those are
so they
great.
got to see some soil sampling, got to do that. And some of them commented, yes, I've watched videos how to do it, but it was neat going out there and actually collecting the soil samples from bioswales. And then we were back in the lab and they got to, sift through the samples. They got to do the ecoplay technique. So they were learning that, and they were very intense about, our students were very impressed,
that's great.
at how much they really got into trying to master these techniques and use some of this equipment that they had never used before.
So just, I don't know how to say this without offending you, Jerry, but so your students, or our students, our Lewis students, could have done research here with you all summer, but they got to do it with these students from Bogota instead. And I saw a little bit of it. So, just the excitement of doing what they probably would have been doing anyway, only in collaboration with students that they were learning more about, and obviously more knowledge among all of you together. And it just seems so positive.
Yeah, and a lot of the interactions were set up where they had to learn from each other, right? And they had to talk to each other, and that really, I think, helps our students with, globalization and understanding that you're going to have to be interacting with people from different countries, and how do you engage with them, and when you're having sometimes that communication impasse. How do you get around that, right? How do
so
you
true.
think it?
Yeah.
Think
Very, so important.
Yeah, you can't just
Continue
be
push
like,
forward.
come and do this
Well,
work immediately
right,
with me.
so important on as a real scientist, science is a global endeavor, right? It's not like you get to pick and choose who, sometimes, I mean, you have some of that, but the higher you go up in science, the more likely it is that you're going to have collaborators on other continents, speaking other languages.
Yeah, right.
So this is not something we're just making up. This is very common. So there's a question that came in from Ask Us that I'd like maybe both of you to talk about, and one of these I'm not even sure about, but from a student perspective, if they wanted to be involved with the kind of course that you're teaching, is there a way that they would know that it's a COIL course? Like, is it designated on the schedule, like this semester? Or like let's say I'm a student who wanted to do something like this, can I say, I won't take it spring of 23, I'm going to take it fall of 24, because that's a course where I'm going to have this opportunity to interact with students from Columbia.
So I'm just going to say in general that Chris Swanson, who was your guest a couple weeks ago, is responsible for almost everything we've talked about today.
Right.
And anybody who wrote to the Ask Us email will respond with that contact information.
Yeah.
It's hard to give like a specific contact information for all the stuff we've been talking about because each one is unique. But I think contacting our study abroad office is maybe the fastest way. Sure. Even though I know taking a COIL class is not study abroad, but he's still really engaged and knowledgeable about all these different programs.
And I would say our desire, as you talked about, so we have 6 faculty who have engaged in this COIL opportunity. And Jerry, you went well beyond COIL because of this research back and forth and all of that kind of stuff. But I think our goal is that it turns, because the other question was how do faculty get involved? So it turns from 6 to 12 to 18 to 24, where faculty know the opportunities. And then hopefully at some point in the next 5 to 10 years, it will be easier to just search and say, what are the COIL what are the opportunities that I have staying here, taking a course, but having that opportunity to interact. Because it's not just going to be in biology and environmental studies, it's going to be in international business, it's going to be in political science, it's going to be in literature courses in which we can have a really interesting conversation with people from France about reading a novel that takes place around the French Revolution or something. So I think it's just, it's exciting to think about where it's going. But to Chris, just to go back to the specific question, probably working through Chris Swanson and the international office is the way to figure this out, whether you're a faculty member or a student.
Yeah, I think so. And and it's a lot of, from a faculty point of view, it's a lot of work.
It is.
And I hope what Dr. Kavouras is saying here is that it's rewarding enough to put in that work, that initial work that goes into interacting with someone from another culture and also building converting a class typically into something that would be both collaborative and online in a particular format. It's not easy to do, but I think from the faculty I've talked to, it's been really rewarding to do it.
Right, pushing yourself to also learn new things has been great.
Yeah. And we might find ways of supporting faculty who want to make this transition for sure. So we're over time.
We are.
Jerry, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's
You're
really
welcome.
inspiring to see, and the whole topic is inspiring.
Yeah. And we with almost all of our topics, we could go on for another hour, but we're going to limit it here. So thank you so much, Dr. Sint, for co-hosting and for working with creating all of this. And thank you, Jerry. I think you're an inspiration to other faculty, and certainly it's a great model for students to be able to have this level of interaction. So we're really grateful. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we will, as I said earlier, we're going to be off for 2 weeks. So we'll be back in 2 weeks because of next week being Thanksgiving. I just want to wish everyone a really, really wonderful Thanksgiving with your family and friends. Remember, tonight we're serving Thanksgiving dinner. Chris and I will be over there with stuffing and gravy. So please stop by and please, think about those that have less than we do, because we can still drop off goods for our Thanksgiving drive that will go to the Spanish Community Center. So have a wonderful couple weeks. Many blessings to you and your family.